Hey lovelies, so we are doing a Paula Scher inspired poster design. So last week you should have done like a copycat version where you're just trying to kind of understand how she does layouts and kind of mimicking her aesthetic in a way. And that's a really good like practice or drill whenever you're presented with a new artist because it gives you a better understanding of why they did what they did if you kind of have to recreate something similar. And I did enjoy all of the little flip posts. Hopefully, I liked seeing some of your faces just because I can't see you in person anymore. So I did enjoy that. If for whatever reason you have not finished the copycat kind of assignment, which was Polisher Part 1. You had to pick one of the three designs, recreate it, plus then answer some questions about her, and then do the Flipgrid. If for some reason you have not finished the Polisher Part 1 or the Flipgrid post, please do that, okay? But this week we're really starting our project. So the previous one was more like an exercise. This is our project and we're still working with Polisher. So I wanted to point out some key style characteristics that you are going to need to incorporate into your own design. Before I begin those, I did want to mention an announcement. So I can do this. You can either do this by hand or by like digitally, like on a Photoshop. And for those of you who did it by hand, you had some like technical, like craftsmanship issues. For instance, like your handwriting, like the text was your handwriting. If you're going to continue by hand, which I actually think is really nice because like this looks like it was done by hand. So, you don't have to do it by Photoshop assuming that that's the only way it's going to look like. You can make it look really nice and much more of a fine art feel if you do it by hand. The problem though is it's unforgiving. So if you make mistakes, then it's very obvious. So you may want to do it with pencil first. But in here, I do want you to think about your text and treating it, even though you're doing it with marker, trying to change it up so it doesn't look like your handwriting. So one way to do that is you can go to dafont.com, type in the words you want, so it pops up with the letters like in a preview, and then make it large, or you can even do it like a Microsoft Word document, so you don't even have to use dafont.com. Make them really large and then turn the brightness up of your computer screen, put your piece of paper up to it and trace it. And I guess I would say, even though the end product is going to have this marker kind of feel, you can do it with pencil first and then go through. So that way if there's any issues with your, I don't know, craftsmanship or spacing, that sort of thing, then I think it works. The plus side of why I also chose Polisher is if you're doing it by hand, she fills it in. There's not like a whole lot of organization. So worst case scenario, you start putting in your marker and then you run out of room for your letters. Well, then just put them on the next line and or change the direction. Like in this one over here, she does a lot of changing the direction. So I think it could possibly work to your benefit, even if you're doing it by hand and have that accidental oops. Try to fix it as best as possible and make it look purposeful, okay? So just a heads up there. But, what I was going to say is, if off of the kind of copycat exercise assignment, you are really not feeling the hand feel, there is a website. It's called Pixlr, Pixlr.com. It is not a software you have to install. You do everything just online. So meaning you just go to Pixlr.com, and it's like a basic version of Photoshop. You have to start with an image. So I believe you start with an image, so you'll have to find your picture first, and then you can kind of select and remove the background and then add your text on top. Under Files, so if we're looking at Teams, at the top menu area Files, I'm going to put a video on Pixlr. It's one that I made for my pre-Ace photography class, but it will serve, it'll be fine in servicing, letting you know where to go, how to get it, and kind of just what it looks like. Okay, so just keep that in mind if that's something you want. Okay. Okay, so back to Paula Scher. So this is going off the rubric. I wanted to hit on a couple key ideas. So if you look at the Marzano scale, there were several style characteristics that you need to include in your design. The first one is finding an image. If you look at all of her designs, the vast majority of them, here I have 4, you'll notice that she doesn't have a lot of imagery. She chooses one dominant imagery here, here, like the shoe, and then kind of the dancer here. And relatively, they're pretty large because we want to be able to see them because they have to compete with all of the typography. So you do need to pick a high quality resolution photo. If you're doing it by hand, start looking at magazine. Or if you do have a printer, you can find your image, put it in a Microsoft Word document or something like that, and just print it out with your printer, because the key idea is that we want it black and white. So I would prefer you to do it black and white unless you're having to pick something from a magazine, in which case then it's probably going to be in color. But if you have a printer or you are doing it digitally, I do want you to kind of follow suit and make it black and white, so that way the typography is where we can really add our color. When it comes to our visuals though, I want it to be relevant to your topic, okay? But you can't pick something from Google. So you do have to use free to use in Scher, so you're probably looking at Unsplash. So I did read kind of the topics you guys are choosing, and I had a couple of you who are choosing like the Olympics here. So I went to Unsplash, and yeah, you can find some imagery because that being postponed, so you might have to, is a little bit limited. I probably would stay away from a sport specific event like the swimmer here, and concentrate maybe more on just general like teams. But this image probably would not be good to use because if I click on it and I'm doing the event of Olympics postponed, this has a lot going on that you would have to remove, and it doesn't really follow the aesthetic of Paula Scher's very simple, singular image to be a central focal point. So I might choose just something like this or something like this, where I can easily remove the background and I can just concentrate on the metal, and then I know that it's, obviously the Olympics. Same thing here, a lot of you are choosing COVID-19, so under Unsplash I just wrote virus, okay, because you can't choose images related specifically to COVID-19 because you're stealing someone else's photos. But here we have quite a few, and it worked well for you guys who are doing your copycat photo, but here we have a nice image that you could possibly use. Again, this is a nice image. If you're like, ooh, I really like this one, I can use it. But again, it might be really hard to cut out and remove the picture itself without making it look like really digital. And unless you have Photoshop where you can get really close, if you're using something like Pixlr, I don't know if their cutting ability will get that good. Where you can really blend and soften so it doesn't look like a digital cutout, if you will. So you may want to choose something that just has one focus area, like in this one I wouldn't use because you need to see essentially the entire shape. So if I were to cut this out and see the masks, I don't even have the rest of the mask on this side. So just pay attention to the type of photo you're selecting, because it does need to be one that can be a full cutout shape, and we should be able to still very much understand what it is we're looking at. So it shouldn't be a cropped sort of image. So I did want to point that out, okay? The next thing that is on the Marzano scale that I'm asking you to do is fill in with the text. I mean, she's known for her typography. Um, and I do want you to fill in the negative space with text. For the most part, a few of her designs have a little bit less, like this one or this one, but overall, it does give that feeling that there is text everywhere. I've broken it up, it leads my eye, it has this stacked feel. Because I just have so much words, okay? So the words that you're putting in your poster design is going to be up to you. But I would think of all the content. That's why the other day you needed to do your research. Go to blogs, see what people are posting on social media. But don't just include things that are being posted on social media. Also include what are the articles saying. You know, pick phrases and sentences from several of those to include into your design. I want it to be, even though it's like I say poster, it's not like we want you to go to an event. It's pretty much a reactionary, emotive feeling to the event. How does the public, how does the world view this event? So if we're thinking hierarchy, the event would be like uh, the hierarchy number one. So this was for Noise Funk. So this was, or a musical or Chicago or the public theater that she worked for. So somewhere on the design, I want the name of your event. And when I say your event, it's just the current event that's happening, that happened in the month of March. So maybe it is COVID-19, and that's really large. And then the rest of it's filled in with everything that's reactionary to that public event. If you're doing the postponing of the Olympics, maybe it's the Olympics really big, and then it's everybody's reactions to that. So there is going to be a little bit of sense of hierarchy with the name, but then I want text filled in throughout. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention was she does a lot of interesting text directions, which goes against pretty much everything fundamental in graphic design, like particularly this one over here, where things are put on the diagonal, kind of like puzzle piece it, and things are going upside down. By all means, be creative with your text. It doesn't have to be traditional like what we've been working with. Same thing in here, kind of puzzle piecing. So some of the words are diagonal where others are not, or they kind of fit the shape and going with the silhouette of the image, or this one going all the way around, kind of in this central sort of feel. Okay, so definitely play with that. I guess, well, this is true, the last things. Limit your color palette. To only a few colors, because that's what she does, and I think that would be smart to also kind of play with that. She does a lot of black text, and then either chooses red, blue, or white. I don't care what your color choices are, make it relevant to your topic, but just limit them. Have maybe only two predominant colors, like this case it's really just yellow and red, really just yellow and red, really just blue and red, and this one is just really red. Limit it, but then while you're doing it, think of how you can create visual movement, like with the pops of red, to lead our eye throughout the piece, or picking one color, like maybe the blue to be emphasis, to help draw your eye up there, and then the pops of red just to kind of move your eye throughout, okay? So that's it for today. Continue working on it. There's no, besides the review and reflect form for attendance, there's no official assignment due this week. I did break it up so that way it helps with planning. So you should have done the research already, and now today you should be finding the image, okay? So go forth and succeed. Bye.